Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Robert, the Chief Product Officer at Revolv. Hello.
Hey, how's it going, Christian?
Very good. Nice to have you on the podcast. I like your background very much. It's special. Please tell us what your company does.
So Robert Podlesni, Chief Product Officer at Revolv. We're effectively a payments company with a focus on payment approvals. So all of our dynamic routing, data integrity, and everything is really geared towards getting payments approved and reducing customer churn.
What would you say is the biggest problem that you solve for your clients?
It's definitely, increasing revenue and reducing cost. So, the more churn we can reduce, the longer we can bill the merchants can bill those customers. That obviously has an exponential effect over time. And then reducing costs because there's less retries. We're able to leverage a number of different acquirers in the space to help drive that cost down as well.
Absolutely. And what are the most loved features of the product?
Definitely the philosophy that one size never fits all. So we can be used as a true billing platform where Revolv manages the subscription or installment or customer journey from that side. We also can be used as a gateway where we've plugged into different front end softwares or different ecosystems, CRMs that are out there today. And then finally, we also have our own PayFac where we can stand up our own merchant accounts for our sub merchants. So being able to do that and then either use your existing merchant accounts or set new ones up for you is a pretty big win to be that flexible.
What are the use cases of the product? Who can use it exactly? What types of companies?
Most of our clients are larger, higher volume e-com merchants. So the platform's is available only for e-commerce merchants today, although we'll probably be adding the retail portion. We do support omni-channel from that end, where we have retail transactions as well as manage the e-com through the platform. And then, from there, it goes down to really who has the biggest need in terms of a decline problem. So we go all the way from replacing in-house bespoke billing systems down to Salesforce app plugins and things like that.
Okay, and can you share a customer success story, one that you particularly like, without any names or only if you can share?
Yeah, so we have a fairly large e-commerce biller. They were running between $3 and $4 million a month a day in transactions, and they were testing all kinds of different solutions out there, whether that be direct integrations to processors, third parties who claim to have lift. And we beat all of them by a pretty hefty margin. So we started out with about 5% of their volume, saw that we were performing about 12 to 15% better. That was a huge improvement over where they were. So they started to move more volume over. And the interesting part about that was when they moved more volume over, the platform performed even better. So we started seeing like a 15 to 18% lift on those transactions, which was, I'd say, a bit unexpected that it improved that much that quickly. Usually we see about a 30-day lead time, but that was pretty phenomenal. And given $3 or $4 million a day in billing, it obviously made a huge impact to their bottom line.
Absolutely. Happy for you. Then do you have any integrations with the platform?
We do. So we're supported on, from a front end side, we're supported on Checkout Champ, Connective, Sticky.io. We have a Salesforce App Exchange product, both on Commerce Cloud and for the CRM. We have a number of other ones coming out, so make sure to stay tuned for any of our announcements there. On the backend side, we support most of the major acquirers. Any acquirer that we add, we have 100% front-end direct integration to. So we don't have any data degradation between our platform and the actual processor, and that gives us a huge advantage in terms of data integrity and allowing our systems to really take hold of that approval.
That's great. And how about the pricing? How do you price Revolv?
This is the biggest issue I have in the space. So everyone in the space always charges you per attempt and then tells you how great they are on approvals. We took a different philosophy and said, if we're going to go out to market and claim that we have the best approvals, we should charge for the approval. So unlike other systems out there, our only cost is on the approval. So if we have a decline, if it's a retried transaction, if they're in recycles, those don't count unless they approve. There's no monthly fees, no setup fees, platform fees, integration fees. The only fee we charge is that per approval pricing, and then we tier that based on how many approvals you have per month.
Okay, and would you say, is this a differentiator from you and other competitors?
I'm not aware of anyone else doing this in market, certainly without any other fees. So obviously it's a risk on our part, but we stand behind our technology, and we'll keep doing that.
How competitive is your space?
It's interesting because there's a lot of competition, but everyone has sort of a niche that they perform really well in. So one of the things, I've been in payments for going on 20 years now, and one of the things on my side is I never like to take on customers where it doesn't fit our use case, right? So there's a lot of times where it'll come on and we'll say, look, I have a great platform. I believe in it completely. We helped a lot of merchants. We'll continue to help them, but I don't want to sell to somebody that's not meant for it, right? Yes. There's been some cases where I've said, hey, look, there may be a better alternative out there for you, although it's rare, but certainly does happen. From our side, we like having happy customers, and we like treating them the way we would want to be treated. So whether it comes to our platform or recommendations on acquirers, we always do and act in the best interest of the merchant.
Great mindset. And now more on the company side, I'd love to know the story of the company, the story of Revolv, and also when you joined.
Yeah, so I've been in payments personally, like I said, going on almost 20 years. All of that's been spent in e-com. I'll call it credential on file. So recurring billing, installment billing, marketplaces, things like that. Most recently, I was at Experian, where I designed their in-house billing system, and a former colleague of mine reached out and said, "Hey, we found this space. We've tried so many third-party applications. None of them have worked at scale for enterprises. You keep advising all these companies to build their own platform." He said, I went out to market and sort of got this started. Do you want to join? I found it very intriguing. Although I loved where I worked and I loved the company I was with, decided to take the risk just over a year ago. So since then, we've actually reiterated the platform, done another release in January and then one last month, and really just keep pushing forward on different product specifications and different things that really help our merchants.
That's awesome. Wow. And how big is the overall team right now at Revolv?
So right now we're, I think as of this morning, 52 or 53 people. That's spread out between the US and Europe. We'll probably increase our European presence as we go more international early next year. And then obviously always recruiting and looking for top talent who's interested in building something a bit unique.
Of course. And how many people were there when you joined the company?
Oh, that's a great question. I want to say 8 or 10. Mm-hmm. It was pretty small at the time. We still have a small office, so I'm in Laguna Beach right now, where we have a small home office. Most of our employees work remote, so anywhere from Washington and California to Florida and New York, and then obviously Europe. And yeah, no limitations, which is nice. I think COVID gave us a bit of a reprieve on that, so we can recruit anywhere in the world, and down to the CTO and technical teams to manage that. But so far, so good.
Awesome. I wanted to ask you, how would you describe the culture of the company?
Ooh, interesting. Hungry. So everyone who's joined, at least since I've been here, has had sort of enterprise and startup experience. This is actually my first foray into what I'll call a true startup, right? So for me, and discussions with my family, it was a bit more of a risk than maybe for some others. But it's been interesting because there's experience in terms of owning your own space and building that, right? With the enterprise space, there's a lot of teams and organizations and processes in place already. When I've come to the startup, it's kind of everybody owns their own niche, right? And as those grow, it becomes headaches, but different kinds of headaches, right? So that's been awesome. I've learned a ton from the people that have been here and who've had the startup experience before. So yeah, it's a bunch of hungry people who love sort of the chaos of a startup lifestyle, and couldn't be happier.
Have you raised any funding?
Yeah, so we've gone through there was a seed round that happened before I arrived, and then I'll call it like a seed A in terms of platform expansion and stuff. We haven't raised money since then. We were going to do our Series A few months ago, but looks like we'll postpone that until next year sometime. That really goes down to finance and the CEO, Frank, at that point. But had great support from the VCs that have backed us, and really interesting conversations with a bunch who want to be part of the Series A. So pretty excited about that.
happy for you. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate the transparency. And what would you say was your biggest challenge since joining the company?
The biggest challenge was right when I got here. So there was an existing platform in the space and a lot of stuff that had been built, and I got the liberty to uproot a lot of that. So there was some database changes and effectively a platform 2.0 that came out, I'll call it January this year, that we really launched sort of, I'll call it like, my version with the CTOs and everyone else's vision of the product, put a great team together in that time to be able to build it. And that was a challenge because I guess a bit unexpected. So as I came in and reviewed it, it needed things that I thought were important for the enterprise space. And so we were able to add those and got the liberties to build it, which was great.
And how about the biggest mistake or the biggest learning that you got?
I mean, the biggest learning certainly is just the startup space in general, right? There's not a team of 50 in every department that you can go and ping off of. So definitely, owning my own niche, time management for sure is a unique one. I think I've picked up a much better process on. And then the biggest mistake, I don't know if it's so much a mistake, but just finding good partnerships in the space, right? A lot of, particularly at this stage, we can't, as Revolv, we can't build everything in our ecosystem. We own our platform, we own all of our own code, we own our integrations, but certain things we have to outsource. And I think picking the right partnerships there are critical in any startup, because that could be, the linchpin if there's a problem. So we've built some redundancy there. We continue to build redundancy for some of those different services, and then deciding whether to build or buy in a lot of these areas really is a lesson learned. I'm a huge fan of build everything, but there's a cost to that as well.
And what do you say was the biggest, was the most successful go-to-market strategy that you use right now to get customers?
I would say, honestly, the speaking at different payment events. So whether it be through our partnerships and different acquirers, or whether it be through industry events, things like that, it always creates, there's a lot of sets of lenses in the audience, right? And so
yes,
it prompts a lot of really good conversation and questioning. So from that end, it gets sort of all the merchants or all the platforms thinking in a different way than they have. And I think that has really put us over the edge there. We've had huge success with pretty much every event we've gone to in terms of recruiting merchants or platforms or things like that.
Amazing. This is amazing value. Thank you for sharing. What would you say is the future vision for the company, the main vision?
I think there's a gap in the market when it comes to sort of the money in transit side of the business. And I say that because when you look at payments in general, credit card processing, and I'll limit it to the Visa, MasterCard networks for now, it was really designed as a card present or a card not present. And so that's kind of how it's continued. If you look at disruptions that have happened, that's not really how payments works anymore. So you have things like an app on your phone or a wallet, and you may be sitting in the parking lot for your local coffee shop and say, the line's too long, I want to order. That's a card not present transaction by the networks, but you're physically there, right? And so whether that deals with the data that goes back to the issuers or the technology on the issuing side, I think that there's a lot of gap in the marketplace there where we could reduce false declines further and create a more seamless customer experience, not to mention the revenue for the merchant, which is a pretty big one. And then, from the other side, there's a lot of innovation like FedNow, real-time payments, things like that are in, I'll call it test or beta mode right now. It seems to have some kind of legs. We're keeping an eye on it closely. I think there may be some important advancements there we could play a role in, either in facilitating those or creating some new channels of our own.
Absolutely. And more on the personal side, I'd love to know, what do you actually do as the chief product officer in your day-to-day job, let's say?
I listen to a lot of people who are way smarter than me, to be honest. So, contrary to what people may think, there's a lot of individuals that have a lot of insight and background into certain products, right? So some things will be my idea. Others are a culmination of, hey, we've started to build this and we need to go down this road further. Let's ask why 5 more times and create something special. The great part about it is really working with everyone from the BA teams on my team who effectively look at each of those, we call them BRDs, but the requirements for the different product builds and scoping out the technology, all the way to the solutioning on the technical side. And there was something I studied a long time ago. It was creative debate, which was a big thing in one of the companies I worked for. And I always thought, oh, it's a fancy way of saying arguing. But in reality, if we can get the technical teams and the product teams and the marketing teams together and say, we really want to create this, what's the best solution? And we keep pushing the boundary. This happened over the last 2 weeks. So it was top of mind where we had 2 different solutions in place for a particular integration methodology we were trying to stand up. They were both really complicated, took a really long time, and the team together created something that no one has thought of and really solves the problem while creating better security. And I think those are the kinds of creative debates that lead to better products overall, instead of just saying, hey, this is what everyone else is doing, let's jump on that bandwagon.
Do you have any advice for people looking to switch from the corporate world, from enterprise to startups?
Check your risk tolerance, certainly. That's like there's the possibility any startup has problems and road bumps, right? Or bumps in the road. So certainly something I'd want to say you want to review with your family and make sure your family's bought in. I have a young child and my wife was recently a stay-at-home mom from that side. So lots of changes in my life, but I've had huge support from her as well as our families and things of that nature. Beyond that, I would say make sure you're okay truly owning a domain, because if you're early on in the startup space, you're going to own a lot more than just sort of your role. While I might be chief product officer, I deal with the technical teams. I've made some sales decks or put some RFP responses in. Like there's a lot of hats to wear in that space, particularly if you're a subject matter expert. And so I'd say you'll understand that it's not going to be a 9 to 5. It is all encompassing, all consuming for a while.
Great answer. I love it. I love your mindset. What's your favorite software product that you use apart from Revolv?
My favorite software?
Yeah.
Ooh. I have great respect for analysts and DBEs. So I love the Microsoft suite. I think Azure's been a surprise win for us overall. We're working on an AWS instance as well right now. But the database work on the Azure side has been phenomenal. I'm a big fan of the Alteryx side as well from automation, and it's a pretty powerful tool overall for using that. And then I think those two have been kind of, I think, the standouts from my space.
Those are my main question for the podcast. I think you did fantastic. Is there anything else that you want to tell us today?
I think from the startup perspective, I went into it thinking we could be all things to all people and realized that's not necessarily the case, right? We have a very firm niche on that high volume e-com space, and then iterating from there to handle more of the available marketplace has really been where we see the success going. I'm very impatient, so from a product side, write a BRD or have the team write a BRD or stories, and it wants to be in right away. The reality is it takes time to build something that's truly exceptional in market. So patience is a virtue. I continue to practice that daily, and I'd say anyone who's in the startup space, just focus on what you excel at, and then continue to plug away at increasing that market share and that product offering.
You did really well, Robert. Thank you so much for joining. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Christian. Have a great rest of your day.